Right guys, quick video. So since version 1.9 has been released, there has been a lot of people on the forums and in the Discord servers and so on saying that the force feedback feels a bit vague in the center, and I have to say I definitely don't feel that at all. I think this patch has been probably one of the best ever in ACC. It's definitely transformed the driving experience, that's for sure. So with that in mind, I'm going to share my FFB settings. Then we're going to go for a quick lap or two around the new Valencia track in what was one of the more stable cars in the game, the McLaren 720S. Now, before we go any further, let me just share my screen real quick to show you my Fanalab settings. So, alright, let me just pull up my top screen there, right? So here's all my profiles, right? Now let's jump to the tuning menu. Now these settings don't change per car in ACC for me, right? I leave these absolutely locked. The only thing that changes car to car for me is the LED profiles for my Formula V2 wheel. So what we have is the maximum steering angle at 900. Everyone knows you set that 900, the game sorts it out, it's all good. Next up then we have the overall FFB strength. I have that set to peak at 65%. We will jump into ACC and I'll show you my settings there in a second. Moving down then, the natural damper, friction and inertia and is all turned off. The interpolation, this is like the reconstruction filter on your SimuCube and stuff like that. So basically ACC physics and force feedback update at 400 Hz. Now, if you want to smoothen that out even more, you can run that interpolation filter on maybe 1 if you find the curb interactions are a little bit too sharp, right? Now, I prefer them to be sharp because it reminds me to actually calm it down a little bit hitting curbs because, you know, the pressure losses in the tires and stuff like that. So I like to be able to feel at least think twice before completely yeeting a curb out of it. But, you know, if you feel, like I say, that the curb strikes are too harsh, rather than running to the damper, which a lot of people do, what I would say to you is increase the interpolation filter to 1, maybe 2. You shouldn't need to go much higher than that. 1 should be enough, in fact. The force effect intensity, that's just the force effects from the game, how intense they are. So everything from the curb hits, the bumps in the road, stuff like that. The game force effect strength, self-explanatory what that is. The game spring effect doesn't do anything that I'm aware of. The game damper effect, now what this is, well, not every, but almost all racing sims have a damper built into them, including ACC, right? So this is how much damper effect I want from the game, right? So ACC has 2 dampers that you need to be aware of. So let me just flick this. Let me just flick this screen off for a second. Let's pull. Let me just cancel that, and we'll jump into ACC to have a look at the force feedback settings in ACC, and all should become quite clear. So into my options, into my controls. So this damper and this dynamic damper, those 2 is what's actually relating back to that Fanalab game damper effect setting, those 2. Now the damper is just purely the damping in-game from ACC. I run that at 10%, just, you know, pretty low. Dynamic damping in-game is 100, but bear in mind, back in my Fanalab, I have adjusted that down quite some. So overall, the damping effect from the game will be quite low, and the dynamic damping will be just enough that I get a good feel for the car at speed, and nothing is going to be too crazy. The overall gain in game is 50%. That's to avoid clipping and stuff like that. Plus, with the DD2 running at 65%, I think that these 2 settings give me a really good, a nice feel across all cars. Now, in some models, I do adjust the feedback slightly in game. So in ACC, number pads. On ACC, the number pad 2 and number 8 on the number pad will increase or decrease the force feedback. It wouldn't be totally unusual to have some cars running at, you know, anywhere from 90 to 100% of that overall setting. So some cars will have a lot of FFB, like the Ferrari used to have quite a bit. If you ran kind of a lot of caster, which the previous patch would have called for. You'll find that in some cars, like maybe the Audi and stuff like that, you might want to bring that car-specific multiplier down to around 92. But anyway, let's stop here. We'll go and load up the aggressive preset because, yeah, I don't really know much more about setups at the moment. I'll just make a or two upward adjustments as I normally do with the tires, and we go for a quick spin around this Valencia track now, remembering as well that you know, the McLaren was one of the safer cars in ACC. You've seen my force feedback settings, you've seen I've just gone with a default setup. So without further ado, let's jump into the car and actually see how this drives, and let's try to I suppose feel certain things that we should be feeling.
Air and track temperatures are rising. Air temp is now 24. The track temperature is now 29 Celsius.
Now, straight away you can see the back of the McLaren getting really, really skittish, and that never used to happen before. So this is completely new. And this is obviously down to the new tire model, the new physics, whatever it might be. See now, the back of this McLaren is very, very lively. This is like a completely different car. I'm not too concerned about lap time, but more about force feedback. So what I'm feeling, you know, with those settings, I can feel the understeer, I can feel the back of it threatening to snap. I can feel when I kind of brake and load up the front. I can feel when the washout is about to happen. I can feel when the car actually begins to yaw into the corner. Now this is all supported, of course, like with the visual aids and the audio aids that we get as well, you know, so from the tire squeal, from the horizon moving in our peripheral to understand kind of how quickly or slowly we're turning relative to the steering input. But man, this McLaren is this is a different car. This is not the McLaren of old, I can tell you that now. Oh shit. Woo! This is not the McLaren. What is going on? I haven't driven this, guys. I have to be honest. I haven't. This is one car I haven't got around to driving yet, but I thought it would be a good candidate for the FFB and all the changes in 1.9 because it was a, let's say, a very safe car previously. Now it's a bit lively. Like it's just a standard default aggressive setup. But like I say, this is just to kind of show you how much the driving physics have changed and the force feedback, how that's changed. And there is nothing vague about what I'm feeling here. Like, you know, some people have reported that this force feedback is incredibly communicative. And, you know, what I'm feeling through the wheel is exactly what I'm seeing on screen as well. It's brilliant. ACC was always pretty good in the... Oh my god. Yeah, you can see the struggles. Very un-McLaren-like. So what was once a beginner-friendly car, maybe not so much anymore. Could be setup related, of course, but I can tell you now the actual character of the car feels a lot different. But yeah, I mean, ACC has always been pretty good in the force feedback department, but I have to say this is way more informative. There's a lot more going on, of course, in this tire model. That's what it feels, and I get that through the wheel as well. And I know I've said it on previous videos, the only other sim that I've ever experienced this sort of detail was Automobilista 2, that mid-corner dynamic sort of drive, where the actual balance of the car, the dynamic of the car, had changed like mid-corner. Keep overshooting that one. Whoa! Snaps in the high speed and the mid speed, but yeah, I have to say, guys, this is a this McLaren is a different beast now. It bears no resemblance to to the McLaren on the older patch. In kind of a good way, I have to say. It's nice to drive. Like, it's very challenging, it's very twitchy, but I think a little bit of setup work, you'd get that into the window and it'd be a really nice car to drive. I've driven the 296, of course. That's great to drive as well. To be honest, everything I've driven so far has felt really, really good. There are differences. They do feel different because of the physics change, but this video specifically around the force feedback, I would say try my settings. I would race ACC fairly competitively in leagues and stuff. So when I set up my force feedback profiles, I look for useful information first and foremost. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it has to feel realistic because, you know, why are we sim racing if it doesn't feel realistic? But I match that realism with information, and I usually start with the information side of the scale first. So what am I getting back in the feedback? Is it usable? Can I feel the understeer? Can I feel the oversteer? What does the snap feel like? What does the mid-corner feel like? I look for all of that first, and I have to get that through the wheel. I need to feel, and that has to be communicated to me in order to kind of, you know, race at competitive levels. Otherwise you can't keep the car on the edge for like a full stint or whatever. So then what I do, once I've determined that, and then I try to dial in a bit of realism. That's just, and what I mean by realism is just softening off some of the profile. And you find that in my settings I run a little bit of damping, both in the Fanatec driver, the game damping now, and then I run actual damping from the game itself. I don't run any natural damper on the wheel. I feel I don't need to. Yeah, give those settings a go, and don't just give them one lap and say, oh, it feels good or it feels crap or whatever. Give it a bit, you know, give it 20 or 30 minutes in your favorite car, and don't be too critical. Don't try to look for feeling, right? Just drive the car normal, and the feeling should reflect what's on screen. If you go looking for feeling to match to the screen, you'll confuse yourself. Just drive it normally, and what you should find after maybe 10 or 15 minutes is that as you're driving around, what the car is doing and what it's doing on screen is being communicated to you through the steering wheel. As I say, if you find the curbs a bit too strong, Paul Ricard is probably a good track to check this out on, because those curbs, although they're not overly aggressive, they are a bit jaggy when you hit when you hit them. And like I say, if that jagginess is too much through the wheel, move the force feedback interpolation filter up to 1. Take it off 0 if you want to. But yeah, we'll leave it there, guys. They're my force feedback settings for ACC. And to let you in on a secret, they haven't actually changed from 1.8. And I have seen the recommended Fanatec settings in Fanalab and stuff like that. And for me, I don't know, they just lack a bit of detail for me. But yeah, give these a go. They should also work on the Fanatec CSL DD. The only difference being is you may have to increase the wheelbase gain. But in terms of like the damping and all of that, you know, it's still a Fanatec DD at the end of the day with Fanalab software and all of that. So I'd expect it to be quite similar. But yeah, we'll leave it there. Give this a go, guys, on your wheelbases. Let me know what you think, and yeah, give the McLaren a go. It's a lot different. If you've been a McLaren driver up to this point, you're in for a surprise. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching.